Awesome. We know him. We've heard of him. Daniel, thank you so much for jumping on board. This session is going to be all about how you create offers and how you smash cold emails and how you build yourself to where you are right now. I know there's a lot to learn from you. So let's kick off, and we'll be removing ourselves. We're going to have a few quick poll questions we'll drop in the middle, but floor is yours, and let's start.
Sweet. Sounds good. All right, guys. So I hope you've enjoyed this event so far. You learned how to get cold emails delivered from Jesse. You learned how to write them with some programmatic AI with Eric, and you learned how to manage them with Nick. And now the only problem that remains is that you need an offer to sell, because it doesn't matter how good your cold email script is or how good your deliverability is. If you're trying to sell something that nobody wants to buy, precisely nobody will purchase it. So what does that mean? It means I have to show you how to formulate an offer that people actually exchange real dollars for. So this is a little presentation. It's typically gated behind people who are inside client ascension, and they pay $10,000 to do that. And you get it today for the substantial price of $0. So I'm going to start going through this. And the first thing is, who am I? Daniel Fazio. I run clientascension.com. I own listkit.io. We have about 47 people on the team who make about $500,000 per month currently. What I'm going to show you here today is, after working with precisely around over 1,000 of you, this is the same thing over and over and over again, and it's never not worked ever, right? So what I need you to understand first is, I'm going to take these two right here. So we have a beat up pickup truck and we have a Lamborghini. And if I were to tell you or ask you which of these is easier to sell for $30,000, the obvious answer is the Lamborghini, because it's going to take the most insane amount of maneuvering and sales trickery and copywriting finesse in order to be able to sell this thing right here for $30,000. It's going to take you literally no skill at all to sell this. Why? It's because you know you can immediately, even if you have $0, you can immediately take this Lamborghini, go flip it for $400,000. Does that make sense to everybody? So the only question that remains is, how do you turn your offer into the Lamborghini in the first place, right? So what we're going to walk through here is how to do that. Now, I'm not going to get through all of this, so I'm going to have to skim a considerable amount of it. But the first thing to do is, you are not an e-commerce store. And this is what I see a lot of people do when they're running an agency or any form of a B2B service. You go, oh, we do email marketing, Google ads, and Facebook ads, and LinkedIn ads, and website building, right? You can't have that. It needs to be one mechanism to one person, right? And now I'm going to get into implications in a second, because I need to explain something else to you. Have you ever come across a situation where it's like, I got on a sales call one time, and I was very young. I was maybe like 20 years old, and I was running a cold email agency, and guys on the phone, and I'm telling him, hey, I'm gonna run cold emails for you, and he goes, okay, so what? I'm like, what do you mean, so what? He's like, you're gonna run cold emails. What do I get? And I'm like, cold emails. And he goes, I don't think you understand what this is. I don't care about cold emails. I care about growing my business. And I couldn't conceptualize this until years later. And what I meant by that is the implication of it. So it's like, okay, you send cold emails. So what? What happens? Well, you get positive responses. Well, then imagine they say it again. So what? So you get calls booked. So what? So you get clients, right? And the problem with a lot of people is they're unable to explain the implication of exactly what is happening. So if you send cold emails, or you build a website, or you do any other kind of email marketing or advertising, nobody is buying your stuff because they don't know what they're getting, because nobody buys Google ads or Facebook ads or cold email or LinkedIn outreach or website building. Nobody buys that ever. They buy what that mechanism delivers them, right? So what I need to explain is this. It's claims, guarantees, and evidence, right? So who in here, just put in the chat real quick, who has 0 case studies? Like, maybe you're just starting, and it's completely okay if you don't. Like, you don't have evidence that you have ever done this before, ever. Yes. Okay, so there's 2 kinds of people in here. You have case studies, you don't have case studies. This is the formulaic equation that has never not worked ever. You have a claim, you have a guarantee, and you have evidence. Right? So has anyone seen these You scroll on Instagram or YouTube and you get that, we'll book you 6,000 sales calls in the next 8 days, right? That's an inflated claim, right? And now if you take notice in the fact that you keep seeing those ads or you keep getting those cold emails, have you ever asked yourself why that is? And the reason why is because it works, right? So when you see someone, they say, we're going to get you $30,000 in new clients signed, guaranteed. And you're like, wow, that's a really good offer. And yes, it is. However, the claim is 10% of the equation. The guarantee is 10% of the equation, and the evidence is 80% of the equation. This is like, if some people, if you get married to someone, you didn't just win. Like, there's still work to do. So what happens is a lot of people, they'll make a claim and they'll make a guarantee to sign the first client, and they completely forget about this right here. They just have zero evidence ever. And you might, I have one case today, I have 2 cases, I have 3 case studies, I'm good now, I don't have to do that anymore. And that is entirely wrong. Because if I asked you how much money in your bank account is enough, the answer, there is no answer. It's infinite amount of money. It's the same thing as case studies. That a case study is money in the bank account. There is no amount that is enough. It needs to constantly be increasing for the rest of time, forever and ever, right? So if you don't have case studies, if you have zero evidence, you are required to have a guarantee. You have to have the guarantee. And it's not a suggestion. It's not like, you should, like, if you try this, like, maybe you should try doing it. You have to have that. And you will get precisely 0 clients ever without it. Because if you don't have case studies, it is the same thing as you having a low credit score and no collateral, and you're trying to get a car loan. When somebody's giving you money, and they only buy it for the function of getting a return on investment. And that's how a bank looks at you. And right here, when you have no evidence, that's credit history and collateral of other assets you own. And you have none of that. And you need to get this as expeditiously as possible. Right? So let me show you some examples of what that might look like. 10 to 20 qualified sellers for your real estate business every single month. Rank number 1 for your keyword on Google in 90 days, or you don't pay. Fill your pipeline with ideal prospects in under 2 hours of work per month. How we help you build YouTube sales funnels that add 10 to 30 qualified calls every month. Implement the system that streamlines and automates over 34 million in scalable revenue insights daily. Add at least 100K to 300K a year in new business by dominating Google. We'll add 50 to 100K email revenue month over month in the first 90 days, or you don't pay. Right? I didn't make these up. These are all people who make above $30,000 inside client essentially. These are their offers, right? I didn't make that up. Now, one of these I said, implement the system that streamlines and automates over 34 million scalable. You might be asking, well, that doesn't have a claim. That doesn't have a guarantee. How does that work? It's because he has a bunch of this. Like a lot of evidence. So this is the pipeline, basically. This is how this works, where it's like you start with a claim and guarantee, you get case studies, you remove the guarantee. That's how that works. This will get you to about $50,000 to $100,000 per month. Around there. Now, I have to go back up to this. We're going to talk about transfer of logistical intensity. So let me put it to you like this. If you, let's say you're a cold email lead gen agency and you say, hey, I'm going to send cold emails for you. What is required in order to make a cold email campaign work and operate efficiently, right? You need to get the domains. You need to get the leads. You need to write the scripts. You need to respond to the responses. You need to get the calls booked. We're going to assign those as points of logistical intensity. right? For every point of logistical intensity that you take in the system, we're gonna add a sixth one, doing the sales calls. For every point you take in that system, it's easier to sell. So going back to that example I was just talking about before, when the guy said, okay, cool, you're gonna send cold emails for me, what does that mean? That was what he was looking for. Well, what does that entail? What happens here? What are my responsibilities? What are your responsibilities? The more of the responsibilities that you overtake yourself, the easier it is to sell the thing. So when you have no case studies, like none, you don't have a choice. You have to pull all of the logistical intensity points to yourself, right? And the best way for me to explain this is, let's take a situation. You're a roofing marketing company, but you do not qualify the leads for your client. What does that mean? Say you're like, you do advertising, you do Facebook ads for them, but then they get the calls. And there's a bunch of tire kickers who put their name, email, and phone number, and you're telling the client that they have to call the leads, right? But that requires labor, right? So nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to do the labor. You don't want to do it. The roofing company doesn't want to do it. Other agencies who sell the same thing also don't want to do it. But in situation two, you're a roofing marketing company and you do qualify the leads for your clients. And like we just talked about earlier, the client doesn't want to do it, so they have a higher propensity to purchase it. Other agencies don't want to do it, so you have zero competition. Therefore, the supply is low. And when the supply is low, you can charge more. Does that make sense to everybody? So when you have no case studies, you need to, one, have a claim, a very specific, quantifiable claim, right? Second, you need to have a guarantee, and that is a non-negotiable. Three, you need to capture as much logistical intensity as possible. Those 3 points will get you to about $50,000 to $100,000 a month. Now, if we take a look at Nick Abraham, who was just talking with you guys, Nick Abraham's offer is he gets meeting-ready leads, right? What does that mean? It means he's not doing the inbox management and the call scheduling or the closing of the sales calls. So that last logistical intensity point right there, the inbox management, because Nick's making a substantial amount of money now. He removed that logistical intensity point from himself, transferred it back onto the client. Now you might look at that offer and be like, wow, I would too like to do that. I would too like to not have to manage that logistical intensity. However, you don't have enough of these in order to warrant getting somebody to purchase that from you in the first place. Does everybody understand what I mean? Right? What happens when you're at around 50 to 100K a month? The only way to scale beyond that, you can do it with a logistically intense business. However, it's just a very poor vehicle to do it. You remove the logistical intensity from yourself, transfer it back onto the client, and then now you become what's called a productized service. Now everything is substantially easier, but the only way you are ever able to facilitate that in the first place or get anybody to purchase it at all is if you have these. Because remember, we just talked about the fact that it's 80% of the equation. So only when you have so substantially much of these are you able to remove this and the logistical intensity. Does that make sense to everybody? Right? So now we got to talk about different kinds of offers. There are two kinds of offers. You have a demand capture offer and you have a demand generation offer. What are the difference between these? A demand capture offer is an offer that somebody will only buy if they are already looking for it. A demand generation offer is an offer that you can create demand for. Let me give you some examples. A demand capture offer is a website. Like if someone needs to rent a bounce house for a party. IT services. You're a real estate agent. You want to get people to list their home with you. Insurance, recruiting, automations, build-outs, bookkeeping, inventory management, code-based, security auditing, task management, credit card processing. You can only sell that if they're already looking for it. Demand generation are things like getting people more calls booked, a cold email lead gen agency, a LinkedIn lead gen agency, webinars as a service, influencer marketing, UGC ad creatives, cold calling, advertising of any kind. You can create demand for this, right? And your offer is always going to fall in a spectrum between these, right? So you might have something like SEO that will hang in the middle, or like video production that will hang in the middle, right? Now I need to explain these more with demand capture mechanisms and demand generation mechanisms. What does that mean? Demand capture mechanism, something like Google Ads. If I search for web design agency, that's a pretty good way to have a Google ad out there for my web design agency, right? You get in front of people who are actively searching for it. Then you have a demand generation mechanism, which is like cold email. Cold email is a demand generation mechanism, or Facebook ads. What that means is you're interrupting somebody. Now, the problem is a lot of people are trying to sell a demand capture offer like websites with the demand generation mechanism like cold email. So what do you do in that situation? There are only 3 things you can do, and that's it. Extremely high volume, and Smart Lead makes this considerably easy for you. You can go get 300 domains, get 600 inboxes. And the reason to do that is just in an attempt to just by happenstance find somebody who already needs one, right? The second thing you do is position your offer to be unique and therefore more on the demand generation side. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say you stop being a web design agency and you start being a conversion rate optimization agency, and you put a guarantee in the offer where you're going to beat their conversion rate or they don't pay. Now you just turn your demand capture offer into a demand generation offer using a demand generation mechanism like cold email. Does everybody see what I mean? Right? Now, the next is outreach to prospects based off demand generation indicators. What do I mean by that? Let's say you're able to get leads. You're like an IT service, and you're somehow able to scrape data that somebody just had a security breach. Also, what you could do here is unique outreach. So like kind of like the stuff that Eric was teaching you guys about, like using AI, because now you're differentiated and you're sending cold emails that nobody else has ever gotten before, using a strategy that nobody has ever done before. Right? Does that make sense to everybody? Right. So someone goes, can you comment on something like sales coaching? Okay, cool. Yeah, this is really good. So I'm going to go to offer forms here. So
we'll be picking up a lot of the questions. There's tons of questions. We'll go through it together for sure.
All right, cool. So we're going to go over offer forms. So there are 3 things you can sell and 3 things only. It's done for you. It's done with you. It's do it yourself. Right? So done for you is agency service. Done with you is coaching and consulting. Do it yourself is courses. Right? The more requirements you put in the customer, the higher level of authority is required to successfully sell it. Right? So if you're selling a done for you service, you need the least amount of authority, perceived authority on yourself. If you're selling a coaching program, you need more. If you're selling a course, you need more. Right? So what does this mean exactly? It means the more logistical intensity that you try to transfer onto the customer, the more authority you need to have. Right? So if there's some random dude who just learned email marketing and has never worked with the client, no single person on the planet is going to buy a course from them. It's just not going to happen. This is why you don't, when you're making a business, you don't start with a course. You start with the done for you service. You collect case studies. You turn the done for you service into a productized service. You start selling consulting to people who can't afford the done for you service. And then you start selling a course to feed customers into the rest of the funnel. Now, the problem with a lot of people is they go from running an agency into running a course because they want to run a course business because it's less logistically intense. What you need to do instead is sell a course that creates customers for the more logistically intense stuff. Right? So the problem, let's say someone builds an agency and then they start selling how to make an agency. The problem with that is they're creating their competitors. So I have never sold with cold email mastery. I never sold how to make a lead gen agency. What I did sell was how to do cold email so that I could create customers for the rest of the offers. And now I do sell how to make a lead gen agency. But why would I do that? Because I'm trying to create customers for a list kit. I'm making my TAM. If anyone doesn't know what a TAM is, TAM is your total addressable market. Now, the problem with a lot of people that go to sell something, and the TAM is so small, they go, I want to sell to supplement companies who sell creatine in the United States who are above $300,000 per month. And there's like 8 in existence. It just doesn't work like that. So like let me explain my funnel to everybody here, right? So I have low ticket offers, script swipes, cold email mastery. I have higher ticket offers, client extension, some done for you work, SaaS, list kit. The function of this, the function of the low ticket offer is to create customers for this and this. The function of the high ticket offer is to create customers for this. The function of this is to, one, sell for $200 million, but also create customers for this. You could enter at any point and logically proceed to any of the others. Does everybody understand what I mean by this? It's sky note, caveat, you don't need multiple offers until you're at like 80K a month. You should take your first offer, your done for you offer, to 80K a month, and then you can start creating new ones. Next, how do you increase the authority? Like how does that happen? Content marketing and case studies. You see how this always goes back to case studies, like 100% of the time. Basically, it all boils down to proof of competence. Now, you might be wondering, well, Daniel, if I run a cold email lead gen agency and I start making walkthroughs and tutorials on YouTube about how to do cold email, then they're just going to go do it themselves. Well, this is where you're wrong, because people only purchase 2 things. They only purchase permission or facilitation. Those are the only 2 things people will purchase ever: permission or facilitation. What does that mean? Why does somebody buy a course or a coaching program? It's for permission. They have an idea. They want the validity of their idea certified from you, the person with authority, before they do it. Facilitation. Why does somebody buy a software or an agency? So the action is facilitated for them. That's it. There's nothing else anybody buys ever. But permission, you need authority. So what if you don't have authority? Well, the only 2 things you could sell are a done for you agency service or software. Does that make sense to everybody? So, higher authority, the more authority you have, the higher the probability of a close, right? You need past results. You need to display your competence. Now, something that people might not get is, or you might be making a mistake on, is, let's say you are a cold email lead gen agency, and obviously you're using cold email to sell your cold email as a service, right? The problem a lot of you guys will face is you're trying to just sell the thing and not sell the mechanism. What do I mean by that? Well, here's what it means. You must first sell cold email as a concept. You have to sell them on why cold email works in the first place. and then you sell them on yourself, because they cannot proceed in the sales cycle unless they believe cold email works first. Actually, I have to show this. Give me a second. I just stop sharing my screen, and then I gotta pull up another thing, because this is
Let's
actually
go for it. Let's go for it.
Gotta pull up a VSL. VSL. Okay, cool. Okay, so this is a VSL for a placement offer. What was the placement offer? So this is a video of me going over, like this video is embedded on the doc itself that I was using, right? So what was I doing here? I gave them an outline of what we're going to talk about. And the first thing and this is the cold traffic, like ads and cold email traffic was getting this. The first thing I put on here was the expected ROI and results they can get from cold email. Now, why did I do this? Because only once they were bought into the mechanism could I then explain how the mechanism works. And then only once they understood how the mechanism works was I able to begin selling, doing the mechanism with us on all of this. So how did I do that exactly? Here's some Smart Lead screenshots, because we use Smart Lead. So a lot of these people, what I was doing here was I was targeting people who do advertising. So I was comparing it to advertising. So I'm like, here's us sending 6,118 emails and booking 52 calls. It costs us $367 in data, which gives us $7.06 per call. Now, if anyone here has ever run advertising ever in their life, you're trying to generate qualified calls booked, it's going to hang roughly in the area of $200 to $300 per call book. So this is substantially better than anything they've ever seen before in their life. I had to do this first. I had to sell the mechanism first before I could sell them on us. Right? And now what would the next logical question somebody would have in here? Would they be like, well, those are probably bad calls. Right? So I go, no, you're only emailing CEOs, founders, presidents, C-suite, and decision makers. Right? Did you just throw some Stripe screenshots on there? Bunch of case studies. Goes back to the case studies, right? It's case studies all the way down. Proof of competence. What am I doing? I'm raising my authority. I know how to do something you don't know how to do. Here's the results from it. Here's me doing it for other people too. It's just raising the authority. Right? Now once I've done that, everybody on the planet wants to do it. So now I have to tell them, here, I have to reject people. I'm like, this is you, leave. Right? Now I go into how it works. So I'm still selling the process of cold email, right? Throw some Liskin in there, talk about deliverability, right? Show examples. The next objection somebody's going to have is around like, what do people say? I don't want to be a spammer. So we show them this. We show them response handling. I throw some flow charts in there. Now, what I'm doing here, everybody here needs to put flow charts on their VSLs, on their landing page. Why? The reason why is because you want to take a simple concept. Like all of you are probably experts at cold email here. You want to make it seem as difficult as possible. You want to make this seem as formulaic and as extensive as possible if it's a done-for-you service. Only if it's a done-for-you service. If it's a course, coaching program, or SaaS, you want to take a complex process and make it as simple as possible. You see what I'm doing here? You're always trying to make it so if you're doing it, you want to make it as perceived as difficult as possible. If they're doing it, you want to make it seem as simple as possible. Right? Here's another flow chart. I'm just throwing flow charts everywhere. I'm going to make this seem as hard as is possible. Because what I'm doing here is they're sitting and they're like, I just sold them on the results. I just sold them with the case studies. I just sold them on the mechanism and how to do it. And now I'm showing them how difficult it is to facilitate it. And then what I do immediately after this is telling them, I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to do all of it. Like here's everything we're going to do for you. We're going to do this. We're going to do all of this. We're doing all this. Now I'm going to compare it. Look, if you were to work with the agency, this would happen. If you were to work with ads, this would happen, right? So here's a little side trick. You need to make an enemy out of other mechanisms. If you're selling cold email as a mechanism, you need to make an enemy out of ads and content marketing. If you're selling content marketing, you need to make an enemy out of cold email and an enemy out of ads. There always needs to be an enemy, right? So my enemy here was agencies and ads. You need to have an enemy, right? Now I'm just selling them. Now I just throw more case studies in here. But such an absolutely absurd amount of proof. And this is who it does work for. This is who it doesn't work for. Just infinite. It just goes and goes. Now, you might be asking, how did I make this VSL? How did I come up with all this? And I'll tell you the simplest way to do this that works so hilariously well. Well, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. If you need to go take your sales calls, the last 20 sales calls you have been on, the last 20 to 50 sales calls you've been on, and you need to go listen to every single one of them. And what you're going to do is you're going to take a note card. You're going to take a little note card, and you're going to write down every single question and objection that every person had, all of them. This call had this, this call had this, this call had this, this call had these 4, this call had these 5, this call had these 6. And then what you're going to find is a lot of people, the same questions and the same objections are constantly repeated over and over and over and over again. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to arrange these questions and objections in descending order with the frequency that they were asked. So you might be wondering, why is this screening process for the cold email specialist? Why was that the first thing I put here? Because that was the most frequent question. And a little math trick for you. The question with the highest frequency is the question that is most logically asked first. And the question with the second frequency is the question that is most logically asked after the first question. The next question always, how do they fit into the business? How do we integrate into them? And only once they have the answer to this question, will they ask this question. What happens when they're in the business? And only once they have the answer to that question will they ask this question. What's the commission structure? And only once they get the answer to that question will they ask this one. Was there a guarantee? And only once they have the answer to that question will they ask this one. And only once they have the answer to that one will they ask all these. Are they able to do other things besides cold email? Do I need to hire multiple people? Can I just do it on Upwork or Fiverr? I think I'm going to try it myself. What if they don't fit my culture? Can I ramp the cold emails up or down? I already have an SDR. Can I integrate with my current tech stack? And I'm like, no. Using Smart Lead is a requirement. Everybody needs to go listen to every single sales call, the last 50, and do that. I promise you, this works so disgustingly well. It's not a lot of times in your life you come across something that works so substantially and hilariously well. This is one of those. And so is this. Everything to the stop. Last thing I'll finish off with is market sophistication. What do I mean by that? So let's say, for instance, let me tell you a little story. I started a cold email lead gen agency in 2019. And I got a client one time. He was selling Fazio email management for e-commerce brands. And my call booking rate on a campaign was like 20%. I could send 100 emails and book 20 calls. It was so wildly efficient. It was absolutely insane. And I was very young at that point. So I didn't understand the implication to that. I thought it would just always be like that. I wasn't wise enough to understand what would happen. Right? Because we were at level 1. And then we quickly started approaching level 4 and level 5. What do I mean by that? It means it is now a requirement, if you were doing cold outbound, to have sales assets scattered around the internet. You are required to have a video sales letter on your website. You're required to have a website, because a lot of you might send cold emails if you have no website. You are required to gather the maximum amount of case studies, evidence, testimonials, and proof as is conceivably possible. You're required to make walkthrough videos and tutorial videos and have comparison pages and have reviews on the internet and when people Google search your name, you are required to show up. You are required to be here. This has to happen. You have to have a LinkedIn. You have to have a Twitter. All of this must exist. I was just at a mastermind. It's called 8-Figure Boardroom. And this guy right here, he tells us, he starts the presentation, he goes, Google search me. I go, okay. And he goes, what do you see? I see an infinite scroll of this guy. An absolute infinite scroll. You are now required in this market to have that, because you were in level 4 and you were in level 5. So when someone tells you what I just told you about VSLs, you're required to do that. When somebody tells you about having a guarantee and a claim, you're required to do that. When somebody tells you you need testimonials, proof, evidence, and case studies, you are required to do that. And there is no maneuvering around the situation. That is just the market that you exist in. Let me give you this real quick. This is one of the best flow charts I've ever made in my life. This is my flow chart of if you need a guarantee. Right? So, first question, are you solving a specific problem? If the answer is no, nothing will work ever. Right? What is cold email as a service solve? The generation of leads. Right? So we're going to assume you're solving a problem. So we go on to the next question. Are you using a completely new and unheard of way to solve it? If yes, you don't really need one, but it would help. Right? So let's say your cold email leads, it's not completely new, it's not unheard of. So your answer is no. Right? So are you charging an abnormally low amount of money? If the answer is no, then we're going to go on. Do you have quantifiable client results? If it's less than $100,000 in quantifiable client results that you have generated, you need a guarantee. If it's more, you can get away without one, but you'll grow way faster with one. This is how this works. Now, you might be asking, well, what if I do all this work and like they don't get results? And well, a guarantee is a trade offer. Anyone ever see that meme where it's like the guy with it's like the trade offer meme? I get this, you get this, and he's sitting there like this in the meme. It's always a trade. I'll give you this guarantee if you do this, right? So they're called stipulatory requirements, stipulations. This is actually wrong. There's two kinds of stipulations. There's a state stipulation. What that means is they must already have something. right? So if you're going to guarantee a client, I don't know, $50,000 in new business, you should probably require that they're already at a minimum of $200,000 per month to have a sales team who can close deals. Does that make sense to everybody? The next is an action stipulation. The client must do specific or multiple action items in order to qualify for the guarantee. So client ascension has action stipulations. What does that mean? It means that if you come into client ascension and you don't do the actions and you don't get a result, you're not getting a refund. But if you do the actions and you don't get a result, you will get a refund. And now here's the trick with these stipulations. You just make them what is required to get the result in the first place. So for instance, one of them in client ascension, one of the stipulations of client ascension, I believe it's sent 20,000 cold emails. And then we make that very easy for them because we give them the credits on ListKit to get the leads in the first place. It's just included. And then we pay for their Smart Lead subscription. So how are you going to not do that? We're giving you the resource to complete the action stipulation in the first place. One of them is that you need a VSL. So we have a VSL coach who will sit and write your VSL with you and then review your VSL. One of them is to make, I believe it's 20 sales assets. So what do? We have a swipe file of a bunch of sales assets that have performed abnormally well. And then we have a coaching call specifically for the creation of sales assets. So a VSL is a video sales letter, Zishan. That's how you make it fair. It's a trade. I will give you a guarantee if you give me this. It's a completely reasonable ask. Now, you might be wondering, well, what should I guarantee? So let's do this. Let's say you're a content agency. You do content marketing for clients. You do video editing, you do the scripting of the videos, right? So now we're going back to implications. Why does somebody purchase content marketing? Well, the only reason why, the first thing they might want is views. What's the second thing that they might want? Followers. Well, why does somebody want followers? Oh, maybe to get leads. Well, why does somebody want leads? Maybe to get calls. Why does somebody want calls? Maybe to get clients. Why does somebody want clients? To get revenue. These are different dimensions. This is the first dimension, the second dimension, third, fourth, fifth, sixth dimension of a quantifiable result. Pick any of these and make it your claim. Any. Now, how would you split test? How would you know? Like, well, is the offer going to work better on views when I promise views, or is it going to work better when I promise followers or leads or calls or clients or revenue? Well, very conveniently, you all have a Smart Lead subscription. Maybe you should just do an A, B, C, D, E, F test and see which gets the highest response rate. It's very formulaic. And that's the end of my presentation.
All right. I think I've grown a bit of my hair back. The amount of knowledge I was dropped into. That was amazing. That was freaking fantastic.
Thank you, sir.
Amazing. Mishti, do you want to kick off with something, or can I go
I have a question. So how did your offer evolve over time? And also how do you keep tabs on, or advice for people here, like how often should they kind of do a deep dive, then reassess and kind of keep tweaking things to fit the market?
Yeah, so this is really interesting because a lot of times when somebody maybe sales are slowing down, or maybe they can't get them going in the first place, they typically think it's an offer problem when it's actually a traffic problem. So a lot of people will think, because what's easier to do, like change the headline of your website or go get 100,000 leads in like 100 more domains. So if you have a demand generation offer, you should be able to get a client for every like 2,000 prospects contacted. You should be able to do that. If you have a demand capture offer, it should be like 1 out of 10,000 prospects contacted. So the first thing to note is go send 10 times more volume. If it still doesn't work, then it's an offer problem.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a lot of maneuvering around the situation. Most people actually have a traffic problem though. If you have a claim, you have a guarantee, you have evidence, and you have like content, it should work. It's very,
yeah.
It will almost.
That's great. Yeah, it seems like the most fundamental thing to sort of set. And then unless your whole identity as a business is shifting, as you're saying, keep tabs on the other stuff.
Yeah. Normally also becomes a TAM problem. So again, going back to it's a total addressable market. So a lot of people though, I only sell to supplement companies. You're just going to hit the TAM in like 2 months. Like you're going to hit every single one of them. Right. So for instance, why does Client Ascension not only sell to agency owners? Because it's a TAM problem. It sells to any form of a B2B company. It sells to other coaching programs as well. Yeah. It's just, you need to expand the TAM. It's just required to do that.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Great.
On that note, some people do have large TAMs, and when they're servicing clients, a lot of that is available in terms of the broader market. But some of the clients are just under NDA and you can't reference them or post a testimonial or case study with their product. What's your go there?
Yeah, normally you can, like, I don't know, let's say it's like you know how just on that VSL I had a screenshot of the campaign, the Smart Lead dashboard. Nobody knows who that client is. No one has any idea that it might be me. It actually isn't that one, but let's say you're like an ad agency or something like that. Screenshot.
Makes sense. And
also incentivize people to give you a testimonial or a case study. Give them like 50% off their next month or something like that. I did this with Cold Email Mastery, and that's why it blew up so much. I don't know if anyone was on Twitter following me in like 2020, but it was like 2-3 times a week there was a new testimonial for Cold Email Mastery. How was I able to do that? It's because I would send an email once a month and I'd say, hey, if you got results with this, one, you had to have actually got results with it. So you're not lying. Don't ever lie. If you got results with this, I'll give you a consulting call if you publicly post a testimonial specifically on Twitter with the quantifiable result you got. And then I'd give them a free consulting call.
To quote you, the success of a business is directly correlational to the amount of social proof that you have available on the internet. I remember that, by heart, and I think that's absolutely fundamentally true. So the more you can put case studies out there, you can win. And by the way, I was part of that movement. I'd be like, how the hell is this guy getting so many people speaking about his shit? Like, what the hell?
Yeah, no one just gives testimonials. It's not a thing.
Yeah.
There doesn't be a reason why.
100%. Nish, do you want to drop in a question, or can I take off one more?
Go for it if you have one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. I guess is there any sort of format or framework for case studies that work? Is there a certain thing that we're meant to do in the case studies where we have a person say, oh, I've achieved this quantifiable result, etc., versus this? Because you did raise some interesting point where it looks like an overachievable number where someone puts unrealistic data and that actually ends up having a negative effect.
Yes, let me show you. Oh, and first thing I'll show is, so like this is my sales page for Client Ascension. It's like wildly long.
Yeah.
Love that.
Love it.
At the end, it's here's case studies. So I have interviews, screenshots, interviews, screenshots, interviews, screenshots, interviews, screenshots, interviews, screenshots.
Nice. Okay.
So there's like different forms, like so you have interviews, you can have like selfie videos. You can have screenshots of them saying they got the result. You can have screenshots of like the dashboards of what you're doing. You should have all. The most ideal is an interview with them. The second is screenshots of them saying a quantifiable result. The next is like selfie testimonials with quantifiable result. The next is like dashboard screenshots.
Interesting. So
What
you
you want
tiered
is,
it down.
yeah, like quantification and an identification of who the person is in the business.
Okay, very interesting. I want to break the age-old conversation people have with trying to get their first case study. Do you still advocate for people to just like, work for free, just get that damn first case study, or has that changed for you?
Yeah, well, working for free is the same thing as working on a performance base where you get paid after the result is achieved. So you might as well just do that. Like
Makes sense.
like if you were to say like, what is an irresistible offer? What irresistible means is zero risk. Because people are more afraid of losing money than they are in love with gaining it.
Yep.
So that is why what I was so like this was very interesting, and it's actually on the stock. I just didn't get to it, but I needed to buy a screwdriver. I needed a screwdriver, and this is like a couple months ago. So I went to Amazon. I looked up screwdriver, right? And there was one screwdriver that was like $6, and it had like 12 reviews. But then there was one that was like $12 and like 5,000 reviews. And I bought the more expensive screwdriver but then I did it and I was like, why did I do that? Because it's like, what could possibly go wrong with the screwdriver? Like there couldn't be a more simple contraption on the planet. What could be wrong with this screwdriver? And you're so afraid of loss to the point where you'd pay double just because other people have. It's very strange. So like when if you want to increase the conversion rate of your stuff or your sales closing rate, it's always removing risk from the prospect. That entails you actually know what the risk is.
Very, very true. Very, very true. That is such a good point to make. Love it. So directly correlational, inversely correlational rather. We'll take in one more question. Mishti, if you have one, you can drop it in. Otherwise, I'm happy to take on that.
I have one, but we could maybe just do both of ours and then wrap. But
cool.
My question is, you mentioned these kind of trigger points a couple of times. Like if you're not doing 80K a month, don't even think about this stuff. And so what are those major ones where you think that like an agency's actual workflow or processes or like hiring should change when people are growing?
What just objectively works is like you get your you have a logistically intense agency, right? What I mean with it, like you're doing everything for them. It's going to be substantially difficult to get it past like 50K a month. It's not that you can, it's just inefficient to do it in that form of a vehicle, right? So what do I mean by that? The more, because you're selling like a service, you have to productize it. It's not that you can't take it above 50. It's just dumb to try to. So it's like, then we just go back to like Nick Abraham, where it's like he just removed logistical intensity from himself. And then typically that will get you from like 50 to 200. And then the next barrier there is about like around 250 a month. And then you have to really start productizing stuff. That's when people start putting in like coaching programs and low ticket products. And then even then you have to productize it even more. So that is why people get into SaaS. So it's like client ascension or like a lead gen agency is a very miserable vehicle to get to like 10 million a year. Dude, that mastermind I was just at, like I was at a table, it was like a breakout room. It was like people at like around like 500K a month. And I was like explaining that to them. They got very upset. And I was like, because I was talking about ListKit too. I'm like, this is just a more efficient vehicle to do this. Like this can be at like $5 million a month and it doesn't matter. I'm like, you guys got to go hire like 80 CSMs and like use all of your capital on ads. It's it's such a miserable vehicle to do this. And they're very upset about that.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's any VC. That's what they're gonna say.
Yeah, pretty much.
So it's very like the more you use your logistically intense business to gather case studies, and the function of the case studies is to remove logistical intensity away from yourself, and you just follow this process forever until you have a software company.
Yeah.
Very, very fair point. That's a very fair point. I love that. Got one last question for you, then we'll call it a day. What's your take on selling to conservative or old school industries, finance, investment banking, private equity? What's your take on it? Do you think people should bother going down that path, or should we focus on the more internety system because of the example where you gave about people going to be doing research about your name and so on and so forth?
One, I don't really like them.
Okay.
But that's just a personality thing. If you're going to, let me explain it like this. On Client Ascension, if I make ads or VSLs for Client Ascension, I'll wear a t-shirt. If I make ads for a list kit, I'm putting a jacket on and a button down.
Makes sense.
So but I'm okay with selling to those kinds of people or older, more corporate-esque people, because I'm never going to speak to them ever on a list kit. Like I will never have a conversation with them.
Makes sense.
But in the logistically intense business, Client Ascension, I will spend a considerable amount of time with them. So I just don't target them because I just don't feel like it.
Makes sense. So you're being optimal with your time. Fair enough. That's absolutely fair. Awesome. Nick, I'm sorry. With Daniel, it's a rather dumb question to ask, but if people were to go and find you, what's the best place to find you?
Here, let me do this. I'll just leave it on the screen real quick.
Waiting so intensely.
Right
There
here.
you go. Cold email wizard. Love it.
Nice.
Love it.
So,
Sweet.
right here.
Nice.
Yeah, you guys should all go watch these 3 videos right here.
Watch and subscribe. What's the one? Which is the one? How to make $1 million moderate. That's that moderately fast. That's a great video to watch.
I'm like screaming at the camera. Yeah, that
yeah. That's the one. A lot of good content in there. Made me wake up. I'm like, shit, need to get to work. All right, everyone. That concludes the end of. One second. Yeah. 2.5. Okay. All good. Well, that concludes the end of AI Week. Thank you so much for attending, everyone. We had some fantastic people from Jesse, Eric, Nick, and Daniel, the masterminds of cold emailing on the internet right now. Thank you, Clay team. Thank you, Smartly team, for making this happen. Mishti, any final thoughts before everyone jets?
No, go get at it.
All right, go get at it. Enjoy your holidays. Make some more bread, make some more money. Thank you. We'll see you in the next session, the next event. We're going to host some big ones coming up. Have a good day. Thank you. Take care and goodbye.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, all.